the Between the Pages podcast. Today we're continuing our little mini-series on, it's like the author insights of the books. And today we're going to be talking about Rosey Rosie.
Yeah, Rosey Rosie is a good one. I'm Jimmy. This is Sarah. This is our podcast. Thank you for being here today. The inspiration for Rosey Rosie was basically the Proverbs 31.
Yeah.
Okay, and so, inside there's the...
It goes through the whole Proverbs 31, doesn't it?
Well, it's the virtuous, her price is greater than pearls. And
all
that
the way
kind
through. So.
Yeah, so it's got the whole, the part of the proverb that applies to...
Well, yeah, but it goes all the way through. It's 10 through 31.
Right.
So yeah. Proverbs 31, 10 through 31.
Right, and so it's a tall order, the Proverbs 31 wife is.
Well, but that's what we said in pretty much everything we've talked about. It's not like a checklist of what you have to do. It's not any kind of, if you're not doing this, then you're not good enough. It's not that. It's just, what you should be striving to be.
Right, and what the book is in general is it's like I say, it's you read the book to your children when they're young.
Yeah.
And they can see, these are the virtues, if you will, that my character should have. And then they start working towards those virtues. Yeah. There's nothing that says you have to have all of those, but it's better than not knowing what they are at all. Yeah, I mean, so it's that kind of thing. And so, it's a great way to from my perspective, to introduce a child to these things.
Yeah. And it's special because Rosey Rosie is a little baby. My baby.
Yeah, granddaughter's middle name was Rose, and so it's like, okay, we can call her Rosie, and next thing you know, we're like, okay. And so it's also kind of a takeoff on Abel, Rosey Rosie. And so their words, they sound the same, but they're spelled differently.
Yeah.
And so it's that.
I just like to always put that out there because...
Yeah, she's your daughter, so of course you do that, right? And there's no problem with that. And so the thing is the two characters that are in here are the two people that are on the ramp in Jane and the Trumpet Train.
Yeah.
They're the old couple.
Yeah.
Okay, and so
I'll put it right here.
Yeah, so when we were working on Jane and we were still putting together the idea for Rosie, well, it's like, those are the two characters we can do. And so we even say, look, when we were doing the author insights, we're like, okay, keep an eye out for these two because they're going to show up later. And the interesting part of the book to me is in the beginning of the book, Rosie and Joseph are thinking about the past.
Yeah.
Okay. And in the end of the book, Rosie is thinking about the future.
Well, because it shows them like in the present time, and they're thinking about the past, like when they met and when they got married, and then it walks you through even Rosie's life before she met Joseph, and then they meet, and then all the things, and it's cute. And then they, at the very end, where is it? Yeah, she's at her wedding day thinking about the future being together.
Right.
Which hasn't happened yet, but it has in the book because they are still together in the future.
But so the thing about it is in most of these things, what'll happen is you'll have somebody, actors or characters that are in present tense, and it keeps doing flashbacks to the past. And it'll flash back to the past, and then it'll come back to the present, and flash back to the past, and so on and so forth through the whole story, till eventually you catch up to real time.
Yeah.
And then there's no real, thought about the future. It's just, this is what's happening. Yeah. And so you stay in present mode the whole time. Well, this particular book doesn't do that.
Yeah.
And when it gets to, it never goes back to the future. It just stays in the past.
Looking towards the future.
Looking to the future.
Yeah.
Which is kind of an interesting kind of thing,
different
I think.
thing.
So it's something that I don't see a whole lot of, and so I thought that's the way I would do it. So that's the way I did it. But you know, Rosie, it's interesting too. I mean, uh, up until this point, we had, Silly Millie, we had Jane the Trumpet Train, and then we took a break and got into.
We got Be Free out.
Be Free, which is a couple bees, a couple of insects, and then we did Jemima. We're back in.
Well, and that was the thing. It's like Jemima and Jemima was supposed to come out before Rosie.
Yeah.
And then Jemima took forever.
Well, there was illustration problems, and there were
That's why in this little series we did Jemima first, because Jemima was supposed to be the next one, and this one just happened to get published first.
Yeah, right. So that's the way it worked out. But
the order is Jemima, then Rosie.
Right, and so in the grand scheme of things, I don't know. I guess really it's okay, whatever order. Things work out the way they work out. I'm not too concerned about, I know what the order is that I intended, but the reality of it's something different. And that's okay. So anyway, Rosie and Joseph, and there's the other aspect of this book is the Song of Solomon, which is kind of a, interesting part of the Bible. We'll just leave it at that. And it incorporates some aspects of that into this. But in general, the main focus is the Proverbs 31. And so it takes each one of the stanzas, if you will, of the Proverbs, the verse or whatever, of the Proverbs 31 life. And there's an illustration depicting, Rosie in that role. And, that was an interesting thing too. That was a kind of a, because you're sitting there, some of these you got to go, okay, this is set in Florida. And I got to like make it modern time.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of a stretch to be able to do that, I guess is the word. The other aspect of this is there's a story and there's a part in the book where there's a rose that gets passed around. And as it gets passed around, it grows thorns. And, that's not the rose that each one of the fellows selects. And I'm sure this is in pretty much every youth group out there in America, but Rosie.
I never noticed that.
Yeah, Rosie.
I never noticed that because normally it's different. Normally it's that they pass the flower around. The story that gets told is they pass the rose around and everybody's touching it and looking at it, and so it wilts and it gets all like disheveled and all wonky looking, and then they put it back in with all the ones that haven't been touched, and they pass it around and everybody picks the pretty ones to take home.
Right.
But I never noticed that as they pass it around in the book, it grows thorns.
Yeah.
Wow.
It grows thorns. Look at me.
I've read this stinking book so many times.
Too. Well, and there's always that aspect of things where you see things that you don't see before.
Yeah, I just filled it in with what I knew from that story.
Yeah, that's what everyone does. And so that's why we have these things to kind of explain some of what's going on. But yeah, so Rosie keeps herself clean.
Yeah.
I guess is the best way of saying it. And, so that when she's eventually the right person comes along, she's in the right
She's
state.
the fairest rose.
Yeah, she's the fairest rose. And, the thing is during the book, Rosie and Joseph, they encounter one another, but they don't ever really do any PDA, public displays of affection. Yeah. They're not holding hands, they're not kissing, they're not doing anything like that. The first kiss is when they get married.
And we don't even show that in the book.
Yeah.
You just have to think about it.
Well,
realize that's what's
in the
happening.
presentation we say, "Oh, the first kiss," and so the first kiss to me is like that's my happy page. I like that page a lot, and I like the fact that they come together. But the other aspect of this is after Joseph is proposed and she's accepted, well, they go to God.
Yeah.
And they're, looking for his concurrence and his blessing. And her thoughts are Yishkeni. And so this is where the divine kiss, the name of the book page, the book business we have is Yishkeni Books, and it's based on that word and that scene in Rosey Rosie, because we were, at the time we began to set all of this up, this was the book we were working on. And we were looking for a handle that was unique for us and unique to what we were doing. And that's what we want to do. We want to work to keep our message clean and simple. And we want to work within and so, what the guidelines the biblical guidelines. And so this is why we attempt to try to keep religion out of the books. We have God-centered themes, but we don't pick on, any particular religion or point out any kind of particular ceremonies or anything. And so, in this particular case, they get married. And so there is a kind of a scripture kind of thing that goes back and forth with that. Scripture from Ruth, your God will be my God, I'll go where you go, that kind of thing. But in general, it's pretty plain as far as that goes.
And normally they are. I mean, they're all God-centered, but they're not.
Yeah. And so, there's a whole lot going.
More than that, really.
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess you could, if you were writing stories, you could make them. I mean, you could make them all have a Hebrew slant or a different denomination slant in that direction. But we choose not to do that, because we want the message to be more God-centered and general. And so, if you, in your family and with your children, when you're reading the book, you can show, well, this is how this applies to what we do, honey, or dear, or whatever you refer to your children as. And so, it's that kind of thing. And so, you're attempting to be non-secular for sure, but at the same time, you're not wanting to, pin it down to where, oh, well, only these types of, religions apply.
Yeah.
So, I think,
we're just
being the Proverbs 31 wife would be something that anyone could attempt. You don't have to be necessarily a Christian to attempt the goals of the Proverbs 31 wife. And fortunately for me, I have a wife that, she pretty much is all of those things. She does pretty much everything's in there. She sews, she takes care of her family, she manages financial affairs, she does a lot, she manages all types of things.
All the things. She gets ready every day.
Yeah, I mean, she's up, she's early, she's ready, and so I'm fortunate. I count my blessings. I'm thankful that I have a Proverbs 31 wife. But, if your wife is not that, or your mate is not that, well, maybe just 2 or 3 of them would be good. So, or maybe just one, but still, you got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
So, I think it's a good book.
Yeah. I just had, a few little points here and there, but you covered like all of them, and what kids can copy is, helpfulness, purity, diligence, kindness, the law of kindness, which goes back to the Golden Apples post that we have on Facebook. And parents can take away without being overwhelmed, just one small habit at a time. You don't go, oh, I gotta start implementing every single aspect of the Proverbs 31 woman tomorrow. You can just do one small one at a time, and over time, what is it? We said it before, it's like 20-something days builds a habit.
Yeah, 21 days, you can build 3 weeks.
So, just do it. I mean, that's...
Well, and that's the thing. I read the Proverbs every week, and I've read this Proverb 31 a bunch of times, many times over my life. But, during the course of this, I'm actually focused in on every single line and every single word, and developing illustrations and words to depict what the illustrations would look like. And that's when I came across the law of kindness.
Yeah.
I don't tell how many times I've read that. And
it's right there.
It's right there in print, and I thought, I didn't know there was a law of kindness. I hear about all these other laws, these, law that, don't steal, don't lie, that kind of stuff. But the law of kindness, I didn't know that was one. And evidently that's, an aspect of being a Proverbs 31 wife. And, it doesn't just apply to wives. I think husbands should, have a law of kindness too. They should be kind in their words.
Yep. 26. She openeth her mouth with wisdom, and in her tongue is the law of kindness.
Right. So if you get to searching down on that, you find, there's this. It was a sermon that used to be back in the 1800s, early 1900s.
I remember when I did the golden apples. I couldn't find barely anything.
Yeah, no one talks about that. They don't, they don't talk about being kind with your words or in your speech or hesitating before you talk or anything of that nature. It's just like say what's on your mind. And it's like, think about that. And that's one of the things we're talking about right now with, one of our other little podcasts is like, words, sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Well, that's just not true.
Yeah.
Words are hurtful. And so, the law of kindness is like, okay, some things are just better left unsaid. If you can't, sometimes, my mom was not the greatest philosopher in the world, but she's like, if you don't have anything nice to say, just don't say anything at all. And so, and it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And so if you don't have anything nice to say, just don't say anything. That's why I tell people in the comments, okay, we like your comments, but if you don't have anything nice to say, we're just going to ignore that, So say what you want to say, but it's not,
Well, the thing that is interesting on that, normally nobody ever says anything negative about the books or about us. It's always just directed towards a religion or something, and it's like,
I don't know where that comes from.
I don't even know what you're talking about. I didn't even say anything about that.
Yeah, we try not to.
But everything else is normally always great, good commentary.
Oh yeah, 90-something% of the comments we get are positive, uplifting. Everybody's good. But every now and then you get one that's like, okay, what's up with that? Okay.
I think that's just everybody.
Well, I mean, I guess the thing is, you want to be agreeable, and so there's no real. I mean, there's not much sense in arguing with or wrestling with the pig, because you just get dirty, and the pig likes it. Yep. They like wrestling, so it's like there's just not much sense in it. So just don't engage has been my motto, and so I don't. It's not necessary. So, but the thing is that's Rosie. She always has a kind word for everyone she meets. Yep. And the people that she meets, she gives them roses, and even people who she doesn't agree with, she gives them roses. I mean, and we could go a long way as a community and a country. And, okay, I don't have to agree with what you say. I don't have to believe like you believe, but I can still be cordial. I can still be, good morning. How's it going? You okay? You can be friendly. You don't have to be spiteful and mean. And it's like, wow, I don't know how we got that way.
Yeah.
It's not something I'm used to. So, and don't get me wrong. I know there's people out there that don't like what we do and they don't like me, but you can't make everyone happy. So, as much as possible, try to get along with people, attempt to get along and be friendly. And the way that you are able to do that is by being friendly. So, if you're always kind of prickly person, like porcupine, well, not going to work out. So anyway, Rosie's a good book. And like I say, you have to instill these types of thoughts and behaviors young. Waiting till, you're in your 20s or 30s.
I know this is a little off topic, but it just was so, we have, whenever we do the little giveaways, sometimes I'll send out the little tiny little Jesuses or little bracelets in the packages too, just as a fun extra. So we have these little Jesuses, and Eleanor has one that's her brown Jesus, and he's got the brown ribbon instead of, there's like red, yellow, green, all the colors, and there's a brown one. She loves this guy. And then she saw a picture of Jesus, like either hanging up or on the TV or something last night, and she was like, that's Jesus. He loves me.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? Just Golden Star Award, because
mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished. I was like, that's all I've asked for, is that you know that. Yeah. So, but it didn't just happen overnight. You know, that's 4 years of, you know, positive talking and effort, I guess. But it's just like,
right. Jesus does
make
love
sure
you.
Kids know that.
He wants the
it's
best.
It's in
for
multiple
you.
of the books. Jesus loved that song. So
right. Yeah, so it's that's a true statement. He does. He cares about you, and that's the whole.
Jesus loves you. Just in case you don't know.
Well, and that's the, like I say, that's the idea behind the books too. Is, you know, a more positive message than what's out there.
Yeah.
In some of these other venues.
Yep. So our Rosie challenge of the week for you is to choose one strength at home habit this week. One act of service done quietly and gladly. Yeah. So, there you go. That's all we have for you this week on the Between the Pages podcast.
Yeah, read Proverbs 31.
Yeah, go read Proverbs 31. It's a good one.
Yeah.
The how many is it? Just gonna take a quick detour. It is 31. That's what I thought it was. Proverbs 31 is 31 verses. I'm like, what's the word? So not in the month of February, but next month in March, you could, I don't know when this is going to air exactly, but you can read one Proverbs a day, and you have one Proverbs of 31 a day, and really focus on it, and you'll have the whole one down. The whole.
They're not that difficult to read.
Oh yeah, they're really short.
And if you're struggling with some part of it, we'll just skip over it.
Yeah.
You know, because don't get hung up on a particular line or verse. Just keep figure it out later.
That's all I have for you this week on Between the Pages podcast. We hope you enjoyed, and join us next time. Next time we're going to be talking about Greg.
Greg, yeah.
Greg's a good one.
He's a character.
And don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow for more Between the Pages podcast.
Thank you very much.